What's going on? Welcome to Truth Wizard, or welcome back to Truth Wizard. Always good to have you. It's always good to be here. Today's show, I hope you brought your attention span because you're probably going to need it. I've got two clips that are a little bit on the longer side. They're pushing about 10 minutes, just a full disclosure. However, I think they're pretty damn good. One is on Sumerian cosmology and the other is on flat Earth. And before you freak out over that, hear me out, man. This is not a testimony and a plea for you to believe we're on a stationary pancake with ice hanging off. It's not that kind of flat earth video. It's a little more to do with the idea that everything we've been told is probably a fabrication. It's a lie, man, or it's altered somehow. It's not a full truth, you know? So I'm here for that, man. I'm all about that, and I want to hear the guy out. And I think you should too. We're going to have a great time. Do me a favor. Before we get going, hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button, please, and thank you. If you are into this kind of content, conspiracies, paranormal, life in general, stick around, stay tuned, hit the like button, subscribe, stay in touch. We're having a great time. I want you to be a part of it, man. With that being said, I'm going to zip it up, and we will get into it.
This is the darkest of conspiracy theories. The darkest of conspiracy theories was that the leak was intentional. The darkest of conspiracy theories is that this was planned. They knew this is going to be a financial windfall. It is the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of the United States by far, from the working class to the elite. It's like $3+ trillion or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
We've already established that it was created in a lab. We already established that USAID funded it. We already established that Fauci et al. Lied about gain-of-function research, what they were doing. The worst theory possible is that this was released on purpose.
Yeah, that would be the worst case scenario. Yeah.
Have you ever danced that one around your head? Because that's where we know they're willing to do horrible, evil shit. But, is there a ceiling on that?
No.
Even now to this day, having spent so much of my life in it, I try to just pursue the leads that I have and then try to let the conclusions come to me. Certainly the fact that they funded the capacity to do this, they worked directly with all the networks that were both doing it and censoring it, puts you pretty much as, they created it and they covered up at least the leak. In terms of the intentionality for doing it, that is a really dark scenario. There are a lot of things in American history that have that same, Miha-Liha distinction. Did they make it happen, or did they let it happen? Did they let it happen, or did they make it happen? And both of them are major scandals that completely change the legitimacy and credibility of policy changes in response to the crisis, for example. Take something like Pearl Harbor, right? It's been declassified now. The McCullum memo, the 8 action plan. Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
Yeah, right. And this was, written before the bombing, and it was 8 ways to get Japan to attack us because we don't have diplomatic cover to declare war on them. But if we get them to attack us, and we can then spiral that into a war predicate. I mean, they're the same thing, for example, with the Northwoods memo, with pretext to war with Cuba, and cooking up all these, hijacking our own planes, sinking our own ships, doing riots on the streets of Miami, and then saying that it was the Cuban government behind it. Same thing with Vietnam, Gulf of Tonkin. Same thing with with the weapons of mass destruction predicate for invading Iraq. Did we know that were we duped, and the crime was negligence for letting our national security state believe the New York Times reporting on chemical
they knew
and
what they were
biological
doing,
and weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Or did we make that happen? Was that something that we knew was not true based on our own intelligence, but because there was a useful thing there? And a lot of people have the same thoughts about issues around 9/11 and any number of crisis events. And I suppose I have my own thoughts on it. They're not fully settled. And because they are beyond the evidence I currently have, I stay in the zone of this is what they did to create it. This is what they did to cover it up. Here are the stars in the sky. Draw your own constellation from there.
Do you think 2020 is the darkest conspiracy theory? I think they're all pretty dark. 2020 was massive, right? It was international, man. Absolutely insane. They closed everything down. We're arresting people for being in parks, beaches, even isolated. Even there could be no one around for, 500 feet of you, and somebody was out there trying to put you in handcuffs in some places. Like, insane. All the stickers, 6 feet. It was madness. It was absolute madness. And so many things that were obvious just rules to be rules that made no sense, that had no bearing on the situation, on the spread, Remember you had to wear the face masks, but you could also wear the plastic shield with no mask. But that plastic shield was like 6-7 inches from your face. And you had all just the air coming in right into your mouth and nose and your face, like, what are you protecting? I mean, it was wild, man. But I don't know if that's the darkest. I think they're all pretty damn dark. I think anytime you look at something and you realize that your government or any government, any leader that is making decisions for whether it's their own gain as a collective or if it's their gain, internationally, or if they are working for a higher power or a higher level of leadership, however that looks, they're making decisions for that entity, those entities, people or literal entities, perhaps. I don't know. That all becomes dark. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all insane. And I've said in a previous show, this is not new. Like, what's happening today, people running around thinking that what's happening today is exclusive to their generation, to this time. It's not. You can go back in time and look at plenty of examples where they've always been shady, manipulative, lying little bastards, man. As always, I'm going to ask you to comment below and tell me, do you have a darker, the most dark conspiracy theory, or do you agree with myself that they're all pretty dark, considering that these are people that a lot of folks, trusted in and believed in to go to work for them, and they are serving themselves or some other agenda, whether they want to or not. They're kind of possibly forced. That's a whole nother conversation. Either way, comment, let me know what you think about this. Okay, this is the first longer clip, just so I don't have this video spiral out of control into an over an hour situation that nobody wants to watch. I'm going to keep my comments to myself the best that I can till the end. I'm not going to guarantee I won't interrupt once or twice with something quick, but I'm going to try to really not do that, just so we can all get through this together and hear his message very cohesively. All right, let's go.
When you look at the solar system, there's 9 planets, right? According to Neil deGrasse Tyson, the alleged rapist. They're all spinning in the same direction. You know the odds of that? 2 to the 9th power, 1 in 512. That's very rare. And by the way, during this conversation, do not say it was God's will. Because if you use God, you have to read the Bible. And the Bible does not depict the earth as a spinning ball in a sea of nothing at all. So you can't have it both ways, guys. You can't have a firmament, 4 corners. God sits up and looks at us like grasshoppers. You can't have that and a spinning ball and nothing. Okay, listen. Just please listen, because it's impossible. All right, next up on the solar system model, it's on a flat plane. Not just is the solar system a flat plane, the entire Milky Way galaxy is a flat plane. Want to talk about flat Earth? Oh, flat earthers. You're saying that after a Big Bang, even with the law of thermodynamics called entropy, which we'll get to in a second, somehow our galaxy ended up being a perfectly flat plane where all the planets spin in the same direction. The odds of that are less than winning the mega lotto every single day for thousands of years. Understand that. Now look at the moon. The moon is a perfect circle. The odds that that happened after Big Bang and just chaos of atoms and particles and dust and rocks colliding is zero. The odds are literally zero. There's no force, there's no wind, there's no erosion, there's no water, there's no force acting upon that moon that would make it a perfect sphere. Next up, why are the craters all perfect spheres? The way asteroids hit, side angle, we've never witnessed an asteroid, okay? The odds that the spin of the moon is exactly the same speed as it rotates around the Earth, again, are zero. If it was 1/4 of 1 mile per hour different, it would slowly turn. The fact it doesn't, and there is zero physics explanations with the model of gravity as we know it to explain why the moon, why its axis rotation is exactly matching it rotate around us so that we only see one side. Light being shined upon a sphere does not make the luminescence the same all the way across. You can do a test with a tennis ball and a flashlight. It's impossible. It can't happen. It only happens on two-dimensional objects. Seeing as you've only seen one side of the moon because of its miraculous rotation and its perfect circle, and the fact that the luminescence is the same across the whole thing, implies, I'm not stating this, it implies it's a two-dimensional object. A lot more than it's a spinning sphere out of the chaos of the Big Bang. Okay? The size and weight of the moon, according to science, it is impossible for it to be rotating around our Earth. The way the moon was created, according to mainstream science, is that an object the size of Mars hit our Earth and created the moon. That's nonsense. We would have rings like Saturn. Where's all the dust? Where's all the debris? Where's everything? That all just disappeared? That makes no sense at all. Next up, the sun is 400 times bigger and miraculously 400 times farther away than the moon. And like two machine-cut quarters, they line up perfectly to make an eclipse. The odds of that are 1 in trillions times 1 in trillions times 1 in trillions. It's not possible. That the perfect circles in this world, which can't happen on the moon given the existing model, line up perfectly with something 400 times larger from a third factor, which is your fixed position on an Earth, that they claim is spinning 1,000 miles an hour. Okay, the shadow of the eclipse is 70 miles wide. There is no way to make a shadow smaller than the object. Of course, there are people that say umbra, because like goats, they've been trained to say that, but they cannot recreate an umbra on Earth. They only believe it because they've been indoctrinated to believe it since the time of their birth by people who want to remove their connection to God. Okay, next up, evolution. So we have something called the Big Bang, which is the ultimate chaotic event. What banged? Who banged it? Why did it bang? How did everything come from a fixed point? Don't even try and tackle that because it makes zero sense. But here's something that you can easily think of, and it disproves everything about mainstream science. The law of entropy is that matter and energy naturally go from order to chaos. If you break a glass, even after 1 billion years, the broken shards will not reform into the glass, because objects have a tendency towards entropy, towards dissolving, towards breaking apart. Whether it's empires or broken glass, the longer you wait, the more the broken shards become sand. They get ground down, they will never go the other direction. So how do we have a human eyeball from a Big Bang? The Big Bang happens and it creates a never-ending waterfall, cascade, domino effect of atoms smashing against each other in an empty darkness for eternity. So given the law of entropy, that things go from order to chaos, how on Earth do we have the structure of a human eyeball in which we can see light and then recreate the light in our minds as images that represent our physical reality? It contradicts to a point of laughable mockery. Okay, now understand that if anyone says, well, sexual selection, Big Bear, you know, over long periods of time, I used to believe this stuff too. I believed all of it. I loved astronomy. I minored in evolution in college. I loved thinking about how the environment would interact with a human being, increase their odds of procreation or decrease their odds of procreation, and certain genes would pass. Nonsense. You're telling me that that force that created the human eyeball, which is unbelievably complicated, that through a long process of light hitting cells and then becoming rods and cones, if that's from sexual selection, why does our skin burn in the sun? Why do I need an umbrella right now so that my skin doesn't become red and cancerous? Well, Big Bear, it's because you're from the north. Why don't I have hair on my body? Why would I die outside in 30-degree weather without a structure around me? If my people came from Northern Europe, which they did for so long, how come I didn't evolve to not die in the snow and then die in the sun? if sexual selection actually had an impact on us, like they say it did, if we can evolve to have the complexity of a human eyeball out of a big bang, even though that goes against entropy, why on earth have we evolved to not have skin that's resistant to the one constant in our life at all times, which is the sun and then the winter? It doesn't make any sense, right? So what is the point of all of this? Is this supposed to give you despair and fear? No, it's removing it. We were created. That glass that was broken was a glass because someone made it. So someone made us to have eyes to see, ears to hear, a mouth to taste, hands to touch, a woman to love, a child to hold, right? That is love. And so what's the purpose of life? Serving that which gave us all of it, God. And they want you to think that we are on a spinning ball in an infinite black, and every atom that just smashes together randomly eventually became your parents, who randomly fucked and are now silently watching NCIS in some long, weird, passive-aggressive game, and you're just here to randomly smash your genitals against someone. No way, guys. That's despair. That's the world where you need medication to get out of bed. That's the world where you can be easily tricked because you have nothing to be grateful for or nothing to live for. When you know that your eyes of your children were created, that means whoever created it loves you. So serve that who loves you, which is your creator. There is no way that moon just got this. The story is an endless serpent distracting you from God's love and making you sad and full of despair. And every time I point out one of these deceptions and people say, oh, I can't be with you on this one, man. It's too much stress. I'm removing the stress. You're made in love. Your soul matters. Your choices matter. God loves you. Why would God give you eyes that can see your wife holding a baby? That came out of chaos? No. Why would God make all these unbelievable nonsense things that everyone tries to explain away? None of the scientists have any cohesion whatsoever. You know, they just changed the time frame of the Big Bang by 1 billion years, and no one batted an eye because they are not walking with God. Have gratitude. When you have gratitude towards your Creator, and it's so simple. Just be thankful every day. Be thankful that this was created, that this isn't random results of genital smashing. And then when you're thankful, when you say, thank you, God, God says, no problem. God is everything, guys. This is created out of love and form. And when you see it, your life has more form and order and beauty and love. You can forgive. You can call out bullshit. You can get mad and not be scared that you're bubbling with rage. The purpose of your life is to have gratitude and purpose and serve God, that which made you. That science didn't give you eyes. Random over 1 billion years didn't give you ears. God did. And that's logic. Do you think logic and math explains how our solar system and galaxy is a straight flat plane? And even though we have the law of entropy, for some reason, the most complicated physical things that we can't imagine just came out of you're out of your mind. That is the illogic. Logic comes from a word, guys. Logos, logic. It's the same word, the word. God, form, natural law. It's all the same thing. You know what is real and what is not real. And when you know truth will set you free, work will set you free. Labor, truth, love, family, soil. That's what's real. Then you won't fall for these tricks.
I'm going to keep this as short as I possibly can so I don't lose anybody or bore you to pieces. But also, you should go ahead and know that if you haven't watched any previous shows I've done, first off, if you haven't, do me a favor, go back, watch, support the channel, like and subscribe. But also, let me tell you, I don't quite believe what he believes in terms of God. I'm not per se an atheist, but I suppose if you would consider an atheist not to believe the status quo of God, then sure, then I am one. Do I believe in some type of a creator, or dare I say multiple creators? Because, well, how do you know it wasn't more than one? We don't. Do I believe in a creator or creators of sorts? Yes. Something, I would imagine, and it does seem something intelligent, was at play to do this, but I don't really know. Do I believe it's what modern man believes, a single conscious entity that's all-knowing and watches over everything and everybody? I don't. He talks about logic. And while I do agree with that, I think that the logic no longer works when you start interjecting the idea of all this love that the mass taught and mass thought God exudes upon people, but yet you have all type of horrible deaths, senseless deaths. You know, kids being born and dying within a few short years, and all they know is pain and suffering. Now, I suppose we could have a conversation that goes into, well, was that possibly karmic repayment from another life? I don't know. That could be, but that's also a departure from what the status quo belief is in terms of God. So that's a whole different ball game we're getting into now. So I'm not even sure we can apply that for this conversation. That being said, let's rewind. Why would that be allowed? And I know it's a very cliche argument, but it's one that it's very surface level, but I think it deserves to be acknowledged. It doesn't make any sense. And there are, things that happen in life where people acknowledge, oh, thank you, God, you saved my life. Well, what about the other 10 people that were, quite literally right next to you, and he wiped them all off the earth? He just didn't like them. It was their time. It's part of his plan. That's what I don't like. I don't like that everything gets explained away by literally nothing. We're just able to explain it all away by saying, well, we don't know. We can't know his plan. He works in mysterious ways. He won't give you more than you can handle. Again, that's kind of a cop-out to me. I'm sorry, it just is. I'm not trying to intentionally be disrespectful or bash anyone's, opinions, thoughts, or beliefs. And as I've said before in previous shows, you are absolutely entitled to believe what you want, and you should. And I hope what you believe enriches your life, and you believe it and you act on it in a positive manner, and you are constantly acting on it in a positive manner. And if that's the case, then that's great. That's absolutely great. We're just different in the respect that I don't see a need for that, for me to want to do positive and want to believe and act on positive manners. Aside from the God narrative, the singular God, the one all-knowing, all-seeing, all-watching that has selective hearing, I'm sorry, I just can't. I can't, because that starts getting, once again, into the mass-taught, mass-packaged, and I believe very manipulated story that is human beings. Just my opinion. We have the God and the biblical narrative. In one case, you're special, he loves you, you're created for a reason, and everyone believes that, but then everyone simultaneously believes the science, which the science is, you are insignificant, you are a speck, you're nothing in the scope of the universe that's ever expanding, and goes on for trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of miles in either direction. And like he said, you can't have that both ways. There's something in the middle that has taken place that we aren't being told. We're not being told for a reason. We're having stories and things, I think, intentionally conflict and confuse people. And we always go back to the why. Like, why would that be a thing? Why would they do that? And as I've said previously, I believe it's because we are not just regular ass humans, ordinary people, whatever. I think that we have an ability, maybe, or even had, and maybe we don't need more. I'm not sure, but I believe it's still possible that we can do things that they don't want us to know that we can do. If you learn how to use your mind properly, if you are truly in sync with your surroundings and this realm that we live on, I believe people have more abilities than what we have ever been told or led on to believe. So why they would hide that, Again, I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. And I could be totally off on all this too. It's fine. As always, I would like your opinion, man. Do you think that this is a flat, very expanse, very vast plane? Or do you think that we are on this ball flying hundreds of thousands of miles per hour one direction on an unstoppable train? Let me know what you think, man. I'm very curious about this. And there's no right or wrong here. Comment and let me know.
Sounds crazy. It sounds crazy, but like the weird stuff started when I got her out, right? So like I think I just need to, put her back. Do I just get rid of her? It's.
He had me for a minute, but then his acting got progressively worse. That was some acting. It wasn't good acting, but it was some acting. The wine glass, that's a neat trick. That was good. The water, it was good. But a grown man sitting at his island in his kitchen, holding his dolly that he just bought, debating on whether to return it, never touched his glass of wine, was only there for this effect, clearly. I don't know, man. I'm convinced this was bad acting and some good effects. What do you think? What the hell was that? That must be the object. Obviously. That's very interesting. Years ago, if you were to show this video to somebody else, you'd have been laughed at. And I'm sure plenty of people are probably still laughing or would laugh. But is it so crazy anymore? After we just went through like a full few months, a little over a year ago, of people claiming to see these drones coming out of the water, right? And there's been these little nuggets, these little clips that have been online for a long time. Like we're talking about 15 years ago. These kind of videos existed, man, showing weird, unexplainable things. And somebody would have the audacity to be like, oh, that's just a stray harpoon from a dolphin poacher. And he shot it and it was so powerful and it just kept going and going and going. And finally it made its way 30,000 feet below the surface, and they just happened to be filming. Let me shut up and let's finish this clip. That's very, very bizarre. If we are to believe the official story, okay, let's play devil's advocate and let me believe everything they tell me, that we live in a galaxy that is a part of a universe that expands in either direction infinitely, and there are billions of other planets and stars, but people still insist that we are the only things, intelligent, self-aware things that exist. You're out of your mind if you actually think that. And that is incredibly, incredibly arrogant and is just absurd. Comment if you feel the same.
So this right here is the Babylonian cosmology, right? This is how the Babylonians saw the world around them. You have the heavens of the gods, right? You have the heavens of the Agigi, which is the celestial gods, right? Then you have the sky above us. You have earth and the oceans and all the waters, blah, blah, blah. Then you have the underworld, which is, I guess, the inner earth or the lands beneath us that we don't see and interact with. Then you have the primordial waters that sit at the base, right? This is known as the watery abyss, where we have Tiamat, the dragon, right? Because we all know by now, it's more water underneath the surface of the earth than there is on the surface of the earth. So if Tiamat was anywhere, she would be down there in those primordial abyssal waters. The primordial waters, aka the abyss, where Tiamat sits, also sits on the Abzu, also known as the deep below. Now let's pay attention to how the Babylonians saw Earth. They saw the Earth sitting, kind of like on a little circular piece with the oceans surrounding it. That's no different than how we see it today, because they tell you in science that the Earth is like 80% water and like 20% land that we can use. And if you look around that circle to the outskirts, you see these lands right here that they didn't really have a name for. But if you look at it, it looks like an ice wall. It looks like a mountain of ice. You know what I mean? And they saw each layer of their world as a flat expanse, kind of like a board or a table, with each layer going out endlessly, no matter the direction you faced, north, south, east, west. And they didn't see it as separate dimensions. They saw it as all one world with just different layers. Here you have Maratu, the underworld, right? And to me, this kind of...
Quick time out on this one. I'm not sure where he's seeing that they believed it was a flat, massive expanse went all directions. I think maybe that was kind of his interpretation. Do I think it's a possibility? Yeah, I don't know for sure. He doesn't know either. But I do think what's interesting is these layers. Are those layers just other timelines or dimensions, rather?
Reminds me of Inner Earth, because I don't believe in the flat earth theories. But when I'm thinking about Inner Earth, I believe that there's water beneath the earth. So that's what I believe that their representation of the rivers of the dead is. And when you look at the earth, we do place our dead beneath us in the ground. So when you talk about gates, I just think of that as many different tunnels or dark entrances into the inner earth worlds or the inner earth planes, right? Which has many names throughout different cultures. But those are those waters, which I think flow through many different openings and canals, kind of sort of like a river and less of like an ocean. And in this depiction, you see pottery, you see people with clothes, you see what looks like a being or something like that right there, blah, blah, blah. You see kings and rulers. So what that implies is that there are cultures and civilizations down there, but there are also reports of spirits and other beings down there. That's because it runs on a different law of vibrations in physics than what we are used to here on the surface. You see what I'm saying? Also, a very interesting note is that water flows downward, right? According to science, water flows down. So if you look at it, where Tiamat is in the primordial waters that sit beneath everything, which is known as the watery abyss, or aka the abyss, right? That's where the waters from the earth flow downward, from the inner earth flow downward. They're contained here in the deep below. Now, when it mentions the celestial gods, right? That's going to be your angels. Because if you know angels, you know that they are extremely powerful and they govern the laws and forces of the universe around us. Things like the planets, things like time, gravity. You have an angel responsible for each of those things. That's why the extraterrestrials don't mess with the angels. They don't mess with Lucifer. They don't mess with things like that because it's above them. Because once again, the angels are the messengers. Doesn't this look like a messenger, of God? And they are up there governing the stars, the sun, the moon, all that stuff you see in those science documentaries. Yeah, and up there experiencing it all at the height of it all is God oneself sitting on the throne. So this little tiny black space right here beneath the vault that holds everything within the earth, right? That little tiny space of darkness, that's where your satellites be. That's where they shoot the rockets and act like they're going all up here into the outer realms of space and stuff, but they're not. Nah, they're just hitting the vault, according to the Babylonian cosmology. You might have heard before that the moon is an orbiting satellite around the what? The Earth. Isn't it funny how it sits up there with the other satellites in this depiction of their cosmology? Maybe that's where they got the idea from. Also, something interesting about the Babylonian cosmology, it doesn't show the universe as an expanding thing. It shows it stacked up and down, meaning it works in a linear function. And when I'm thinking about that, maybe that describes your different dimensions, right? Fourth dimension, fifth dimension, second dimension, first dimension. And if you think about the word first, right? If you look at the Egyptians, they believed that everything originated from the primordial waters of the abyss, the nothingness, that everything was dark first and then came the light. Scientists call this the Big Bang. Also, I want to point out, you see how you have Anu sitting up here, right? Anu being God. And then you have his two sons, Enki and Enlil, right? Which also means Lucifer and Michael. Well, we know that Lucifer got kicked out all the way down to the earth, all the way down into the underworld. But where does it say that they locked him up? They say that they locked Lucifer into the abyss, and they locked the other fallen angels, right, into Tartarus. Tartarus being the lowest point of Hades. Hades being hell or the underworld. And in this diagram, the lowest point that we have is known as the deep below, aka Tartarus. But what sits above Tartarus? Tiamat, the ancient water dragon, right? And what does she guard? The watery abyss, and she guards the deep below, so they can't escape without having some big epic battle with her. But if you look at the book of Revelation from the Bible, right, they say that the dragon or something is going to come up out of the waters, and when it comes from out of this waters in this depiction, it would be coming up out of our what? Oceans. But it has to come through all of these waters first, right? And in doing so, you have to come through the underworld, which is where you have the inner earth people, the so-called demons. All these different cultures say many different things, but it would have to come from there first, right? And when you talk about the abyss opening, the watery abyss, and the locust coming out, why does the Bible depict it as if it's going to come from the land, when actually it's going to come from the water? So that's very weird and interesting to me.
Let me just say, nobody has any idea what the hell's going on, man. I love new theories, ideas, people interpreting it, people piecing together, connecting their own dots. I think it's fantastic. Obviously, with any of this, I wouldn't, and you shouldn't, and he shouldn't blindly believe any depiction, any one certain belief, right? Because we just do not have a way of knowing, unfortunately. That's just reality. Whether we like that reality or not doesn't change. It's the truth. We don't know. If we are living in a realm that is stacked, layered perhaps, and these layers are different dimensions, different planes of existence, and that is where you get your frequency and vibrations, okay? They're so close together that depending on your frequency, we've talked about that. A lot of folks talk about that and how you are vibrating. That could be where you're intercepting your thoughts, whether they're coming from a higher vibrational, more positive place or lower vibrational, the underworld. What are the stars? Because at that point, are they all other suns and planets that we're seeing? What are the stars? What would the stars be if we are in a stacked, layered type of realm reality that we're living in? I want to touch on the God situation with the Sumerians. And we talk about Lucifer and how he was cast down to the underworld. But, the Romans did not have Lucifer personified into a person, an entity of sorts, right? Lucifer was Venus. Lucifer is the light bringer, the light bearer. And that's what Venus represented. Venus is the brightest star planet in our sky. So at some point after the Romans enter the age of the Holy Bible, now all of a sudden, Lucifer goes from being the brightest star in our sky, essentially, Venus, to an entity that is now evil and trying to ruin your life. That's one hell of a contrast, wouldn't you say? I have many questions about that. We can save that for a later time, and I got to do more homework anyway before I can even really get into that, quite frankly. But looking at Sumerian cosmology, I'm still not sure we can apply our thoughts and beliefs and the interpretations that we've been taught. We can't apply that to this. I would hope and would assume you would understand why I say that, right? Because it's vastly different things that just cannot apply. Do you think that there is something to this Sumerian interpretation? Is this taken too literal, perhaps? Comment, let me know what you think. I hope I've made some kind of sense here. I always like seeing and hearing different opinions, so I hope you can appreciate that too.
Meu Deus do céu. Olha, ó. Viado. Você não vai assustar a gente. Você tem condições de continuar? Calma. Okay.
What was that?
Fica calmo.
Entendeu? Mas falei.
Calma, respira.
True or false, you decide. I am going to say false. This was clearly a crew. There's a lot of things set up. I just automatically check out when I start seeing, more than 3 people involved. Typically, it's a sign of this is usually all theatrics for entertainment only, which is totally fine. I don't really know what was happening, but there was kind of a lot happening, but nothing that seemed really convincing or conclusive, and it was hard in 30 seconds anyway. A little creepy, but not creepy enough. You know what I'm saying? You guys, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed today's show. A little bit different structure, I know. Hopefully the longer videos I had tucked in here didn't bore you to pieces. If it did, I'm sure it'll show in the numbers, and I'm sure somebody might let me know, and that's okay. Please do. Let me know if you enjoyed it or not. I would like some feedback. With that being said, I'm not going to babble on for forever. If you're still here, thank you so much. Hit the like button. Hit that subscribe button on your way out, please, and thank you. Stay tuned. I'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy your Friday night. I will see you in the next one.